Okay, so get this. Imagine going to like a royal wedding and it could get you killed,
Whoa.
right? Or even a funeral. That was
Wow.
ancient Macedon, especially during the time of Alexander the Great.
Really?
Yeah, and we're going to do a deep dive today into all the murders and assassinations that happened around him as he was trying to get into power and during his reign.
Oh, wow. That's dark.
Yeah, it's gonna get real dark.
So we're going to find out not just who got killed, but why
Exactly.
and how it all fits into the big picture of Alexander's empire.
Absolutely. So if you're into power, betrayal, intrigue, and shocking violence,
Oh, my.
then buckle up because this deep dive is for you.
It's really fascinating how, we tend to focus on these big achievements of figures like Alexander the Great, the
Right.
conquests and all that.
Good glory.
Yeah, but the path to power, especially back then, was not so glorious.
No, not at all. And I think there's no better place to start than with the assassination of his own father, King Philip II.
Oh, wow.
Right. Can you imagine, like, you're at this big wedding celebration, Philip's daughter's getting married,
Okay.
everyone's there, and suddenly, bam, the king is murdered right there in the middle of everything.
Right in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, my goodness.
It's like something out of, like, Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, totally.
So this event really, I think, shows us how chaotic and dangerous that world was that Alexander inherited.
Right.
I mean, Philip's assassination wasn't just a personal tragedy. It threw the entire kingdom into chaos.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you have this power vacuum, right?
Yeah.
And Alexander, despite his young age, he really saw that opportunity.
He seized it. He didn't waste any time.
No, not at all. He was quick.
It's really like a Shakespearean drama, isn't it?
Totally.
The king murdered at his own daughter's wedding, the ambitious young heir stepping into the spotlight.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a dramatic start.
Oh, for sure. So let's talk about this assassin,
Okay.
Pausanias, right?
Yeah.
He had a personal grudge against Philip.
So it was personal.
Yeah, and apparently, what we know from the sources is that he felt humiliated and mistreated by some of the king's companions.
Oh, wow.
And Philip didn't really take his complaints seriously, so I guess Pausanias decided to take matters into his own hands.
So a personal revenge that had huge political consequences.
Oh, yeah, big time. And it just goes to show that even in the ancient world, personal issues could have these massive ripple effects, especially when it involved the king.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I find really interesting is how Alexander used this chaos to his advantage.
Yeah, he didn't let a good crisis go to waste.
Not at all, no. Even his father's funeral became a stage for him to consolidate his power.
Yeah, that's cold, man.
Yeah, I mean, instead of just mourning, he used the funeral to get rid of potential rivals, accusing two brothers of royal blood of being involved in the assassination.
Oh, come on. That's harsh.
Yeah, he had them executed.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
Oh.
Right. He loses his father and then uses the funeral to eliminate threats to his own power.
That's right, and it doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
Alexander even goes after the soothsayer who had predicted a favorable day for Philip on the morning of his
What?
assassination.
You're kidding me, right? The soothsayer.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, he was a potential voice of dissent.
I guess so, but come on. He was just doing his job.
Yeah, but for Alexander, it was all about control, removing anyone who could challenge him.
It's like he's saying, I'm in charge now, and no one, not even fate, is going to tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the brothers, we've got the soothsayer, but what about Attalus? He was another powerful noble, and he basically said to Alexander's face, you're not the rightful heir.
Yeah, Attalus was a fascinating figure. He really went for it.
He was bold, for sure.
Very bold. Questioning Alexander's legitimacy, implying he wasn't Philip's true son. I mean, you don't say that to a king.
Especially not a king like Alexander.
No, especially not him.
He was known to hold a grudge, so what happened to Attalus?
Well, luckily for Alexander, Attalus was away leading an army when Philip was killed.
Oh, convenient.
Right. It gave Alexander the perfect opportunity.
Strike.
Exactly. He sent an official with orders to bring Attalus back, but if he resisted, to kill him.
And I'm guessing Attalus resisted.
He did, and he met a swift end.
Not surprising.
Alexander later called him the greatest enemy he ever had, so clearly there were no hard feelings there.
It's like Alexander was a master chess player, always thinking a few moves ahead, eliminating his opponents before they even had a chance to make a move.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He was strategic and ruthless, and it set a very dangerous precedent for anyone who dared to cross him.
And it wasn't just rivals or political opponents who became victims. Even Cleopatra, Philip's widow, and her infant daughter got caught in the crossfire.
Cleopatra's fate is really tragic, and while the sources aren't completely clear on whether Alexander directly ordered her death,
Right.
it's very likely that his mother, Olympias, was behind it.
Olympias, she was a force to be reckoned with, wasn't she?
No, absolutely. Ruthless and ambitious.
Yeah, and getting rid of Cleopatra and her baby would have eliminated any future claims to the throne through them.
Exactly. It was all about securing the dynasty.
It's a pretty grim reminder that no one was safe in that world, not even women or children.
No, not in that game of power.
And to really cement his control, Alexander goes after another rival. And this time, it's family, his own cousin, Amyntas.
Yeah, Amyntas's execution is particularly significant because he had a legitimate claim to the throne, being a direct descendant of a previous king.
So a real threat.
Yes, and by eliminating Amyntas, Alexander basically removed a focal point for any potential rebellion or challenge to his authority.
Wow, so in just about a year, Alexander had orchestrated or been linked to the deaths of so many people.
It's hard to comprehend from our perspective today, but that was the reality of power back then.
It was brutal. And it set the stage for a reign that would be marked by both incredible achievements and a lot of bloodshed.
Absolutely. And as we dig deeper into the murders under Alexander the Great, we'll see this pattern repeat itself over and over again.
A swift and often brutal response to any perceived threat, whether real or imagined.
Exactly. It's a chilling reminder of the dark side of power, even in the hands of someone as brilliant and charismatic as Alexander the Great.
So Alexander's really secured his power, right? He got rid of all the obvious threats, but it doesn't stop there, does it?
No, not at all. In fact, it kind of gets even more intense.
Oh boy, so what happens? Like, who else is in danger?
Well, let's jump ahead a few years. Alexander is in the middle of his Persian campaign.
Right, conquering everything in sight.
Exactly. But even with all these victories, there's this growing sense of paranoia around him.
Paranoia, like he doesn't trust anyone.
Pretty much, even his closest companions aren't safe.
That's a scary thought.
It is, and that brings us to the Philotas affair, a story that really shows just how dangerous it was to be close to Alexander.
Okay, so who is Philotas? What happened?
Well, he was the son of Parmenion, one of Alexander's top generals, and Philotas himself was a close friend of Alexander.
So inner circle stuff.
Definitely, but this whole thing starts with a seemingly small incident of failure to communicate.
Communication breakdown, those are never good.
No, especially not in this context. It all begins with a soldier named Dimnus.
Okay, what did he do?
Well, he finds out about a plot to assassinate Alexander and tells his lover about it.
Oh, no, probably shouldn't have done that.
Probably not, and realizing this is serious, Dimnus's lover tells his brother.
Okay, so now the brother knows. What does he do?
He tries to warn Alexander, but he goes through Philotas to do it.
Philotas, Alexander's friend.
Yeah, the same one.
Okay, so why didn't he just tell Alexander directly?
We don't know for sure. Maybe he didn't believe it, maybe he was negligent, or maybe there was something more going on.
Suspicious.
Right. But whatever the reason, Philotas doesn't immediately tell Alexander.
Uh-oh, this can't be good.
It's not. So Dimnus's brother waits a day, and nothing happens, so he confronts Philotas again.
He must have been freaking out.
Oh, I'm sure he was, but Philotas stalls again, which just makes things worse.
Yeah, now it's really bad for him.
Exactly. So the brother, thinking that maybe Philotas is involved in the plot, decides to go to someone else.
And eventually, the information gets to Alexander.
It does. But by then, it's too late for Philotas.
Oh, man, that's gotta be bad news for him.
It is. Alexander is furious. And remember, Philotas wasn't exactly popular among the other generals.
Right, he was known for being a bit arrogant.
Yeah, and that really comes back to bite him here.
Because now his enemies see an opportunity.
Exactly. They start whispering in Alexander's ear, playing on his paranoia.
Saying that Philotas was in on it all along.
Yep. And Alexander, already prone to suspicion, believes them.
Oh, Philotas is in big trouble now.
He is. He gets arrested and put on trial, but it's not a fair trial. It's basically a public execution.
They just wanted him gone.
Pretty much, they pile on accusations, and despite his claims of innocence, Philotas is condemned.
Wow, that's rough.
It's brutal. They torture him, force him to confess, and then he's executed, along with the actual conspirators.
That's just cold.
It is, and it shows how quickly things could change in Alexander's court.
Yeah, even being close to him didn't guarantee your safety.
Not at all. And the tragedy doesn't end there.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. Remember Philotas' father, Parmenion?
The one who served Alexander loyally.
That's him. Well, Alexander, still fearing repercussions, orders his assassination.
No way. He killed Parmenion, even though he wasn't involved.
Yep, Alexander sends his agents to kill him, a completely loyal general who had nothing to do with the plot.
That's just insane. I mean, how could anyone feel safe around Alexander after that?
It really makes you question his judgment, the effects of power on him.
Yeah, did he really believe Parmenion was a threat? Or was this just a way to get rid of anyone who might oppose him?
It's a debate that continues to this day.
It's a chilling story.
It is, and it sets the stage for another tragic event, the killing of Clytus the Black.
Clytus the Black, he was a senior general, right? Served both Philip and Alexander.
That's right, he was a close companion of Alexander, even saved his life in battle.
Wow, so this wasn't some rival or political opponent. This was a friend.
Exactly, which is what makes his death so shocking and revealing.
What happened? Did they have a falling out?
It wasn't a calculated move or anything like that. It was a crime of passion, a sudden outburst of rage from Alexander.
Alexander lost his temper.
He did, and it had fatal consequences.
Wow. Okay, so set the scene for us. Where does this happen?
They're at a feast in Marikanda, modern-day Uzbekistan.
A feast. Sounds fancy.
It was. Wine was flowing, music, dancing, everyone was celebrating.
Except for Clytus.
It seems so. By this point, Alexander had started to adopt Persian customs, even presenting himself as a godlike figure.
Oh, that wouldn't have gone over well with everyone.
You're right, especially the older Macedonians who saw it as a betrayal of their traditions.
So Clytus wasn't happy about it.
He was not. And fueled by alcohol and resentment, he starts criticizing Alexander.
Oh boy, he's playing with fire here.
He is. He compares Alexander to his father, Philip, not in a good way.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
And to make things worse, he reminds Alexander that he was the one who saved his life in battle.
That's bold, to say the least.
It was, and it didn't go over well.
I'm guessing Alexander didn't take kindly to the criticism.
He did not. He flies into a rage, grabs a spear, and runs Clytus through, killing him instantly.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
It did, and it shows a side of Alexander we haven't seen before, a loss of control, a violent outburst.
It's almost hard to believe the same man who was so calculated and strategic could also be so impulsive.
It is, and it's a reminder that power can corrupt even the most brilliant minds.
So what happens after Clytus is killed?
The sources say Alexander immediately regrets it. He's filled with remorse and grief.
That makes sense. He just killed his friend.
It's a tragic end for Clytus, and a turning point for Alexander. The guilt and the weight of his actions would stay with him.
It's a story that makes you think about the nature of power, the dangers of unchecked ambition.
And the role that alcohol played in all of this.
Yeah. How much did drinking contribute to the violence in Alexander's court?
It's a good question, something to consider as we move on to the ultimate mystery in Alexander's story, his own death.
Because for a man who lived a life surrounded by violence, his death is surrounded by its own share of mystery and speculation.
And it happened when he was relatively young, just 32 years old.
So how did Alexander the Great die? Was it natural causes, or was there something more to it?
It really is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah.
Alexander, who had, he was responsible for so many deaths.
Right.
And then his own death is this big mystery. Yeah, there's almost a sense of, I don't know, like poetic justice there.
Right. We've been talking about all these murders, the rivals he got rid of, but then his own ending is, it's still up for debate.
It really is. A lot of unknowns.
Yeah, let's try to break down what we actually know.
Okay.
Alexander's in Babylon. He's been, partying pretty hard,
Feasting, yeah.
and then he suddenly gets sick. What happens next?
Well, the historical accounts, they're not super clear on the details.
Okay.
Some say he died from a fever.
Like just a regular fever.
Maybe. I mean, it could have been from years of campaigning, injuries, just the wear and tear of his lifestyle.
Right. I mean, the guy was constantly on the move, fighting battles. It couldn't have been easy on his body.
No, not at all. But then there are other accounts that suggest something more suspicious.
Oh, here we go. The poison theory.
Had to come up eventually, right?
I mean, it wouldn't be a story about Alexander without some intrigue.
It's hard to resist, especially given all the enemies he had.
Right. People who might have wanted him dead.
Exactly. Rival generals, family members who felt wronged.
Even his own mother has been mentioned as a possible suspect.
Olympias was a powerful figure, capable of anything.
It's like a historical thriller.
Totally.
Everyone's trying to figure out who did it.
But if we're being honest, there's not a lot of evidence to back up the poison theory.
So it's mostly speculation, rumors.
Pretty much. But what we do know for sure is that Alexander's death threw his empire into chaos.
Oh yeah, it was a mess.
Power struggles, mutinies, His generals basically fighting over the scraps?
It wasn't exactly a peaceful transition of power.
Not at all.
And then there's this strange story about Alexander's body.
Oh, right, yeah.
It stayed, like, perfectly preserved for days after he died.
Yeah, which is a little odd, especially in the heat of Babylon.
Right, you'd think decomposition would have set in pretty quickly.
You would, and that detail has led some people to believe that maybe Alexander wasn't actually dead.
Whoa, hold on. He wasn't dead.
Well, that's the theory. Some think he might have fallen into a coma or some kind of paralysis, appearing dead but still technically alive.
So they thought he was dead, but he was actually just, like, unconscious.
It's a possibility. Some historians have entertained that idea.
But wouldn't they have, like, checked his pulse or something?
Well, medicine wasn't exactly advanced back then.
True. So let's say, for argument's sake, that Alexander wasn't actually dead.
Okay.
What then?
Well, remember, the Egyptians were the ones who embalmed his body.
Oh, right, the Egyptians.
Yeah.
With their unique embalming techniques.
And part of that process involved removing, well, certain vital organs.
Yeah?
So even if he was still alive, that would have,
Yeah, that would have taken care of that.
to put it delicately.
Not a great way to wake up.
No, not at all.
So most historians agree that the not actually dead theory is probably just a legend. Right?
Yeah, a way to add a bit more drama to an already dramatic story.
Makes sense. People love a good mystery. And what's more mysterious than a king who might not actually be dead?
Exactly. But if we stick to the most likely scenario, Alexander died from illness.
Okay. And that left his empire in chaos and his legacy, well, it's complicated.
It really is. I mean, we've talked about the murders, the ruthlessness, but he also achieved incredible things.
He conquered most of the known world at that time.
He was brilliant, charismatic, a military genius.
But also a tyrant capable of terrible violence.
It's a reminder that history is rarely black and white.
Right. Even the people we consider great often have dark sides.
It's important to remember that to see the whole picture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the murders under Alexander the Great, it's worth thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Did his use of violence ultimately help him or hurt him?
Did the fear he created actually make things more stable, or did it lead to his empire falling apart?
Those are questions we can all ponder.
Exactly, and we've explored the different sides, the mysteries.
Now it's up to you to decide what you think about Alexander the Great.
This man who conquered so much but couldn't escape the violence that surrounded him?
If you're interested in learning more, we encourage you to do your own research.
Read the ancient sources, see what other historians have to say.
And come to your own conclusions.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to the podcast.
We've got plenty more stories to uncover.
Mysteries to solve.
And we'll keep exploring the hidden corners of history.
Until next time, keep learning and keep asking questions.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.